Hello, I just want to show you something pretty cool I've been wanting to try out, and it's Quad Spinner Gaea. This is a really cool tool to generate believable looking terrain at a larger scale. Now, the great thing about this that I found is, as you can see here, that you can actually use the commercial use allowed for the free community edition. Sadly, it's only created for Windows, so if you have a Mac machine, you're kind of out of luck. But if we head over to the download page, you can just, ready, start off the download right here. You can buy the different editions here, and you can see the sort of what's included, what's included. But if you're a hobbyist and want to try things out, I think the free version is fantastic. I've been using the free version. I'm thinking about either getting the indie or maybe potentially the pro later down the line. And the reason for that is the build resolution for the terrains are relatively small. This is good enough for testing things out, but if you want that really high detail, you probably want to look at 8K or 4K even if it's just an indie thing, just for those big shots. But again, if you're using this maybe for 2D art as a reference, I think 1K is more than enough. It's fantastic. All right, so once you have this downloaded, you can boot it up. It'll be greeted by this screen, and you can see I've already generated some worlds here. It's a cool thing that you can hover and quickly take a look at what's happening here. But let's just open up a new project, and what's going to generate, it's almost like Blender, it'll be the default cube, but here it'll be generating the mountain with an erosion filter. And this is looking fantastic already. I'm just going to walk through some very basic settings. I highly recommend the website. In here, you'll see there's a bunch of wonderful tutorials that I went through that got me started. But if you just want to check this out really fast, I'll just walk through some of the stuff. So I don't really need these two things here, so let's just delete that. Gaea is a node-based system, so if you're familiar with nodes like Blender or blueprints or just any sort of nodes, you might feel right at home. On the left side here, you'll notice that there is a number of color-coded settings. And now these are kind of like what the tools that you'll be modifying, and you can see where all of these things are. So right off the bat, you'd be probably wanting to add either primitives or geoprimitives. And you can see all of these have a number of different settings. It's also one thing to note too that currently it's running at the resolution preview of 0.5K. You can go all up to 4K. I don't recommend this. This is really beefy. And anyway, you can be exporting at 1K. So I'd recommend building things out at 0.5 or prototyping it. And once you have like everything you like, switch to 1K, because it's going to build it and then put it into a cache, which when you go to export, when you export it, it already has all the images, so it's just going to save to cache. You don't have to rebuild anything. Okay, so I'm going to keep it 0.5, and let's just add some random stuff. Like, this thing's amazing. So let's go with, let's just see. I was really having fun with Voronoi. So you can see here, it generates this kind of stuff. Now, you don't really have to generate realistic mountains. There are ways to use these tools to generate more stylistic stuff, which I love. So we're going to use Voronoi Plus, and on the right side here, you can see how many iterations, what kind of distribution. I love this tool because it encourages play. So if I like bump up the iterations, you can see like it adds more and more and more. And let's just say, okay, I kind of like that. Let's add another one down here. So we've added a primitive. Let's add a geoprimitive. Let's say maybe plates. Let's add that in, and you can see it here. Again, we can play around with the scale. Lower the scale, you can see like it generates really far ridges. This might be great for far away terrain, but if we go a bit higher, we can get something a little bit larger. Steepness, again, I'm just playing around right now, but hopefully you can see this is pretty fun. Like I'm just clicking around, trying to see random things. Cool. So this looks great. So we can line this up together. Now, you can combine these two and mix these height maps together. And you can do that by there's a nice little button down here called Multimix. Or you can hit, as you can see here, F8. So I'm just going to hit F8, and it combines the two together. You can see that two textures are interacting. So if I click on Combine, and you can see it's blend here, you can play around with the ratio and try and get something nice that you like. Or you can start adding like add, which basically is only it's reached the top and it's just it's adding to the height map. Essentially, I could be wrong with that, but that's basically what's happening here. So again, I encourage play. I kind of like playing with min and max values here. As you can see, like it's ready. It won't add any more to the max value, so it's gonna bring the rest up this way. And again, minimum, same thing, but reversed. So let's just keep with blend. So these two look nice, and you can add as much of this geo and keep combining them together to generate really interesting stuff. But these two are good for now. Let's continue on here. So you have your warps, which you can displace, and you can have your adjustments here, which adds more of kind of like the combined stuff here. I would definitely encourage play with this, but the fun part is the way I'd like to work is I add my primitives, then I'll go into my profile and filters and add onto this to start generating secondary detail. So we have this here. Let's try adding maybe more worlds here. So we'll add this. I like using this tool here because it kind of makes it a little alien-like, as you can see here. So it's added these two, creating this whirl. Let's minimize this a bit. That looks great, like that. You can add the power. You can minimize the power so it isn't too crazy. Kind of like the little circles it generates. Like that looks great. Again, with these two things, you combine something else. So let's say I like the whirl as like one thing, and let's add. Let's see here. Cells, and if you hover over it, it'll tell you what it does. But I just kind of like dragging it in and reacting to it. Like, sure, why not? Can we scale these? Yeah, see, look, this looks already like a cool stylized land. Yeah, it's fantastic. Add some seeds. Oh, okay, this is using Voronoi noise as well. This is very familiar to Blender that I like to use to create tech panels. As you can see here, I'm holding Alt and I'm left clicking to move around. So if we add these two together, I wonder what will happen. So I'm going to hit F8, combine these two. That looks great. More stylized. All right, so let's say you like these two things. Let's hide this and this. And next I go into the erosion. Now this is like, it'll start creating data. As you can see here, it simulates hydraulic erosion and turns any shape into a realistic looking terrain. You can also use lookdev, which is kind of like speeds the process up a bit. So let's say, for example, this surface adds superficial detail to the terrain to increase its realism. So if I just drag this and put it on top and give it a second to generate, so I just have to like click on this. Let's see here. It might not work. Oh yeah, it's adding very little. So I do need an erosion on this. So let's just throw the erosion here. And you can see it slowly erodes stuff away. Kind of like that. Combine here. See, it's eroded things away. Actually might. Where's this? The Voronoi. Whoop, the cells here. I kind of want to bring this down a bit so you can see what is going on here. Actually, I might just get rid of this altogether. And then we don't need this. Oh, delete that. You can see what's happening here, closer to the erosion. It really looks cool, like creates little caverns here. Add that, that looks great. There's also something else I like to add in filters, no, profiles, terrace. This looks fantastic. So what this does is it almost layers up, oh, it creates terraces here. So if I do this, you can kind of see what's happening. I might actually delete that and move it into combine. And, oh, I lost something here. Alright, that's fine. Now let's see, terraces. There you go. Okay, so you can see like it's separating this a bit. So I'm just going to pop that into here. And then we can add in micro erosion and increase detail this way. You can see it's like sharpening it. You can like increase the sharpness this way. Again, like I would just say play around with this kind of stuff. And then let's just add this. And then we could add in a, let's see, shear. So like shifts everything slightly, folding. You can also bring in the 2D view to see a overhead view of what that'll look like this looks great already. All right, so let's just say this is good enough here for the purposes we want. Lots of mistakes in here, but I'm really excited about this program. Okay, now we'll add the data nodes. Now this is going to extract information that we can use as masks to color, kind of like in Photoshop, where if we create a black and white image and then add in clipping masks. This is kind of like extracting that sort of data. So we can use soil, and what that does is you'll see it creates like this plane here. Now it's not using the mountain itself or the 3D geo. You actually have to dictate that, hey, use this. So we're going to right click on our shear and hit pin as underlay. And if we click on this, now we can see what's happening here. And you can control and power grade things. I'm just going to keep that as is right now, demonstration purposes. We're going to use the flow map, which I love using because it like gets in and shows you all the kind of details here where waterfall might happen. Going to click primary, secondary, apply changes. It should give us a little bit more detail like this. You can change the rate of flow, but I'm just going to keep these two here. And then I am going to add in something I love using too, and I think that is, let's see here, growth angle details. I think it's the curvature. I could be wrong. Let's take a look. Curvature, add that in. Yeah. See the way, actually that might be too much. Where is it? Protrusion, that's the one. This is like almost taking the rock faces and the height maps. Yes, this is what I want. So I'm basically, with these masks, I'm thinking about like different colors to add on to them. So like this one, I want the rocks to be isolated. So I use the protrusion, and now I can like lower the power a bit, and you have to hit apply changes on this. Maybe increase it a little bit more. I really just want the mountains to be selected, or the heights. This looks good. Okay, so we have these maps. Now we can close this, close this, close this. It just makes it easier for me to see what's happening. And now we can add a really fantastic feature called sat maps. So let's do that with the soil first. We jag it on, and they have a massive library here of different kinds of terrains, rocky, sandy, green, all of this stuff. And it just kind of like color grades. If you're filming with gradient maps, it's essentially doing that. So if I click on this, you can see this looks beautiful already. Cool thing too with this program is if you click on the viewport settings, you can kind of like move the sun around. So you can see what's happening with the direction here. You can change the water, add water. You can reverse the direction of, I think this is like if there was no color here. Advance, you can turn on the sky if you want. You can turn off the light just to see what your diffuse map would look like. Let's just keep it like this. So this looks great. I'm just going to choose random colors here. All right. Oh, look at that. That looks beautiful. See the way this looks reusable already. Cool thing here too is like you can actually change the range of this stuff. So if I lower this, you can see it kind of like switches the influence. You can add in a little bit more samples this way. I don't think this does much on this low resolution. You can control the bias, which is how much of the gradient map it's using. So you can clean it up or make it a bit dirty. I kind of like making it like this. It looks a little bit more natural this way. And I kind of like adding multiple sat maps onto each layer just to give a different coloration. So we have a green one here. Let's see if we can find something else. Let's see here. I like, kind of want, you know what, with green, let's add, I want like bright colors. Yes, maybe this, oh yeah, this would be great, like poking through. So we combine these two together with F8, and you can see what's happening here. So it's this map, it's combined the two, just gave it a little bit more color. It's hard to explain, but I just like the way it feels more natural this way. And of course, you can change the ratio. You have your, if you're familiar with Photoshop or any 2D application, it's very similar here. If we add max, it just brings in the brighter colors from one map to the other. So you can see it has the yellow here. Minimum is the reverse. That kind of looks cool. I do like the blend though of this too. So we have the soil completed. Now the rocks. I love using blue rocks, so I'm just gonna try and find a couple maps that. You can also drag these on. I just kind of missed it this way here. So let's take a look here. White rocks are pretty cool. Let's see. Yep, this is it. That's the one. All right. Do I want to change anything here? That looks great. Maybe we get some like red peeking through too. That'd be cool. So let's add another protrusion with the sat maps. You can, if you have a specific color in mind, there's something called quick color as well. I'm just going to throw this on here so you guys can see what this is. Quick color. It's just basically 2 gradient maps. You can like choose this color and then, oh, that's great. Whoop, that's great. And then you just click another color here. And then it just smacks the two together like, oh, this is a nice color. I like this. If you have something stylistic in mind, I think this would be great to use. But I like this kind of technique here. Oh, that looks great. Okay. Maybe if we see, there's some nice blues there. It's like really nice contrasting colors. Very beautiful. Let's bring that back up. Oh, it's natural discoloration here. Some really beautiful moments. It's very low res right now, but we can only bake on 1K, so that's fine. So I'm just going to combine these two together, F8, and you can see blue, this, and that. And if I add in the max, you can see it's adding a bit of the orange, a bit of this, and it's creating these nice little purples here. We can also change the ratio. And now, let's see what happens when we combine these two, F8, combine the two together, and we're getting this really cool mixture of things. That's what happens when we add the max, lower this, max this out. You can see the purple rocks are now kind of peeking through, but I kind of like, see, there's not enough discoloration for my tastes here, but if we do this, you can see like these nice little crevices poking through. I feel like this is more of a natural look to me, at least. Like when I see that, I'm like, yeah, that looks like a photo one of the satellite probes would take while exploring some distant planet. All right, so once we have this all done, let's just say, oh, this is great. We can bump this up to 1K, and it's going to rebuild everything here. I'm just like scratching the surface of this stuff. Like your nodes can be as big as they want. So once this is done, there's a couple of things down here with outputs. You can output a mesh, or you can just output options to output it. But what I like to do is I like to right click and hit mark for export. So the combine is just going to be the color map. And then the last thing here, the shear, since this is all of the height map information, I'm going to right click here and mark for export. I'm going to go to build, and there are these color variations here. I'm using the free version, so I can only use the 1K. The great thing, like I said before, is that the 1K is already built in cache. And for the shear itself, I'm going to use an EXR, and you can look here what's the settings here. I usually just do a lot of post stuff. So let's just say terrain scale in proportion to terrain defined, method, manual scaling in your target application normalized. This looks great for my needs. I'll just click on that. TIFF is fine. So like I said, when I've already built this with 1K, so if I hit start build, it's going to ask me, oh, I have to say first, so I'm just going to call this world 04, 34. And it's like, hey, you already built this. Do you want to save this? Absolutely. And it's going to take me to this. And I can take a look here. This is my color map. And this is my EXR containing the height data. And now once this is completed, we can open up Blender. And let us launch this. And we're just going to import in the height map, and we're going to import in the color map, and maybe just quickly create some sort of roughness with it, and then you have fun. All right, so we're going to add in a plane. We're going to add in some subdivisions because we need the displacement maps to be able to read the height map data and just have enough vertices for that. Alternatively, you can export the mesh itself out, but I kind of like the find and control this way. This is just my own personal preference too. All right, so we can add in a displacement subdivision. Add in 2 subdivisions, and then we're going to add in a displacement, and then we're going to add in new, go to the texture, and we're going to, this is my fast way of doing things, where I copy this, open one, paste it, shear. Look at that. This is our beautiful, beautiful terrain. And the reason for that is we barely have enough faces, but you can use this as some beans to create low poly terrain. All right, so we're just gonna bump this up, so you can see what's happening here. You can see that our terrain is like this, simple, simple. Or we're gonna do this. 4. See that it is acting crazy because the strength is here, but if we lower the strength 0.2, and you can see like it's taken all our lovely information. So I'm going to shade smooth this, and you can see we could add a little bit more stuff to it. See what happens? Is it simple? Because sometimes when I do simple, it's going to have this like cut off here. I think there was a way. I might have to add edge loops to this. It's going to turn the viewport viz out. Supporting edge loops this way, just so that our terrain out there, viewport viz. Now, will that work? Yeah. Yes, kind of. Okay. I'll have to look more into that. But you can see we are currently at, what's that? For its 9 million faces. But you can see it's not too bad. Bring this up a bit. See what happens when I do 6. Is it going to chug? Uh-oh. Please. What have I done? Oh, there it is. It's using 5 gigs of memory. But as you can see, it can still move around. I'm going to bring this down. Back to 5. Back to 5 you go. Okay. So we have this here. Wonderful. Cool. Now we're going to add our shader. Add shader new. And then we're going to navigate to our shader editor. And we're going to add in our texture, which a nice thing about Blender is like I can just go boop. And there it is. Color here. Check it out. There's our child that we generated. And we're going to do a color ramp at this here. I'm going to use this as a roughness. So like, oh, I want these bits to be shiny. Whoa. I need to invert that. So I could switch this around, but I can also just use this. Invert. And then throw that on here. Look at that. Color background. Boom. Dramatic lights added. Sun added. Bring this up. Rotate this. Look at that. You can also click on this, and it's still kind of chugging a bit, so I might lower this to 4 samples. And now, the fun bit is just to show you some things that are happening here. Actually, I'm just going to go... I actually don't like these supporting edge loops. I might delete these supporting edge loops. That's kind of cool. You can see that. It's going to delete these edges. Actually, faces. Looks like a little diorama. Now I think I can go back to higher sample. 5. Alright, cool. Oh yes, so the shadow is kind of not good. And the reason for that is because our samples for our shadows are pretty low. So if we go to shadows, you can see it is at 1K. Bump this up, looking kind of cool. Now if you don't want soft shadows, tick this. We can also navigate to our sunlight, and we can fill in some weird gaps here. If we check the contact shadows, as you can see, a lot better here this way. You can play around with distances, cascade maps, max distance. Now this currently is not real world scale. This is actually a meter, so this is like a very decent sized diorama. In terms of size in meters, if you want a real world scale, we have to like crank this up quite a bit. And even then, this is only 100 meters, so this, I mean, I'm sure this is probably massive like this, but for viewing purposes and for like rendering for references, I think it's fine this way. What else can we add here? Well, let's see. We could bake in some bounce light to make this a bit more cool looking. We can also add an HDR around this to take in the real world value. I can't remember if I have any HDRs on hand right now, but I don't know if baking would do anything. But anyway, the baking process would be adding an irradiance volume like this. Like, hey, I want bounce, take light. I would like photons here, please. So we'll do that right here. And then we're gonna go here and say hello, hello here in direct lighting. And it's gonna do some magic. Oh, actually it does. You can see it created some nice bounce light here. It's baking lighting. So then if I take this out, you can see get some nice like bounce light this way. And you can bump up the sample. So far it's only like 3 bounces, but this is pretty cool. Yeah, hopefully have fun. Animate that. Bye-bye.